children's programming has tackled complicated issues like this before. In fact, the best children's programming tries to tackle complicated issues in a simple manner so young people can understand. The worst children's programming has always been the ones who just sit on the sidelines, show flashy colors, then ends with a catchy tune. Those have always been the worst children's programming shows. The best example I can give you is Mr. Rogers, and I will always talk about Mr. Rogers in the most favorable light. Mr. Rogers made a custom segment for 9/11. He came out of retirement to make a segment on 9/11 to help explain it to young people. This tragic moment in American history. He made a segment on domestic abuse, and he made a segment on divorce. And I watched that divorce segment on the stream with all of you, and that segment was great. Not because it avoided the complicated issue of divorce, just had it at some weird background filler, but because they tackled it in a way that made the children feel loved and understood, so they could see families on their television screen that actually related to them. It wasn't just a magical world of the Brady Bunch where everybody's life was perfect. I want that kind of creative and amazing children's programming, and I would love to one day be able to sit my child that I do want to have one day in front of a television screen and know that we're not just feeding them slop that counts numbers and shows them shapes. Now let's talk about these trans Muppets who are apparently destroying the United States of America. There's a lot of threats this country faces. One threat that a lot of national security advisors talk about is a possible reemergence of Al-Qaeda in Afghanistan if the Taliban retake over. Security advisors, of course, disagree on this. I would point to the Department of Homeland Security reports that have been unclassified, pointing to the development of far-right militias growing in size and ethno-nationalist terror threats who want to cause mass casualty events. Organizations like Adam Waffen, etc., that seem to be on the top of every domestic terrorist threat. That seems to top them all. The leaders of the United States military seem to agree with me, and polling within veterans show that they see more examples of extremism. In 2015 or 2016, there was even a neo-Nazi within the United States military that tried to leak information to cause mass casualty events. But all of that pales in comparison to the real threat to the sons and daughters of America. Trans Muppets. That is the real threat. And today we shall examine the real threat, because PragerU, the most prestigious educational institution within the United States of America, has a problem with trans Muppets. Sepsen, thank you so much for the tier ones that you have just gifted. So I wanted to hear their problems with it, because personally, as I've said, there's been a lot of studies about inclusivity in children's education and how helpful it is. And I forget the study that I sourced a while ago in my debate with Big Papa Fascist, which he was unable to counter, by the way. It talked about how inclusionary education during childhood development is extremely helpful for increasing the mental health outcomes of not only LGBTQ plus youth, which is most obvious, but is actually also helpful in increasing the mental health outcomes of straight youth as well. So having things like representation, anti-bullying programs, these are things that not only help queer kids, but straight cis kids as well. So there's really no opposition to this that you can have from an outcome point of view, unless you just have an ideological objection to showing queer people to youth. Because queer people exist in this country, and they should be able to see the different type of diversity in the United States. But I'm getting a little ahead of myself, so let's watch the segment.
Live.
Oh, we're live. Hi, everybody. It's Tuesday morning. Jill Simonian here with PragerU Kids. We hope you're having a good day. We've got hot topics that we're all furiously and quickly.
By the way, if they have any ideological objection towards having inclusionary education directed towards youth, the fact that they have a PragerU Kids is a little sus if they're going to complain about indoctrinating children. And we've gone through PragerU Kids before on this channel. Geek, my editor, will probably leave a link somewhere around here to us talking about that before. And it was bad. It was bad. It talked about how Margaret Thatcher was a girl queen for busting up unions who were protesting against low wages. So at least ours is just hey, treat people like human beings. And their propaganda is hey, bust up the unions, yes, queen.
talking about over here, right, Will?
That's exactly right.
Yes, and it all has to do with what? Muppet babies.
Yes, my mustache. We'll be debating that the entire show.
We're debating Muppet babies first and Will's mustache second, so we're good to go. Like I said, I'm from PragerU Kids. Guess what, guys? We're going to talk about it a little bit later in this live after we talk about Muppet babies, but we at PragerU Kids are doing a huge membership drive this month in August for our prep membership.
See, right here, they're going to talk about all this propaganda, all this trans agenda being pushed on kids. And right before that segment, please join PragerU Kids. Join up, sign up for membership. We have low membership. We need a lot more kids getting enrolled to learn about low taxes.
Parents, pro-America, and resources to teach.
Okay, basically, she's just spinning like pro-America, low taxes. Please join PragerU Kids. Okay, let's get to the segment.
Our kids' American values. Typically, we welcome about 1,000 members per month into our
Okay, we get it.
join prep, offset the time.
By the way, she doesn't see the irony in this, right? This whole time she's pushing this, she doesn't see the irony in her complaining about the trans agenda while pushing her own agenda.
You have friends, you have other people, your school, administrators, whoever. It's one thing to have you join prep, but I'm sure that you have friends.
And now he pushes it. This is the whole segment.
Meet with people and
okay, we get it.
Members are educating.
Jesus.
It's an online community. Check out
Jesus. Okay, we get it.
Transgender agenda into their shows. Are we listening? I'll
Yes.
listen. Okay, go for it.
So this is the scary segment they're talking about, okay? This is the thing that's pushing the trans agenda onto the youth, and that's so harmful. So I haven't seen it, so maybe I'll agree with them. Maybe it's like all children are trans, we must convert or something. I don't know, but let's watch.
Oh, we met the most amazing princess, but they ran away, and all they left behind was this.
Everyone, there's something I need to tell you. The princess who came to your ball tonight was me. I'm Gonzarella.
But Gonzo, why didn't Vu tell us?
Because you all expected me to look a certain way. I don't want you to be upset with me, but I'm
The royal ball. We met
Okay.
That was so adorable. What's wrong with that? That was literally nothing. So a kid wanted to dress up in a dress. That's it. Okay, maybe they're going to have a second segment after that, but that was so harmless. And let me be clear, what this is talking about, the problem or whatever they're trying to show here, was something I actually dealt with when I was younger. Because, when I was younger, I remember I liked flowers, right? When I was younger. And I liked to put flowers in my hair. But want to know what? My dad and other male figures in my life was like, you're not allowed to do that. Take that out. You can't look like a sissy. The same dad who famously told me, like, thank God my only son ain't gay. Right? So this is a actual real thing that children face when they're getting older. And they're trying to express themselves how they want to. And enhancing a child's creativity is a beautiful thing. And allowing them to dress how they want to is also beautiful. As long as it's not like sexual in nature, right? But Gonzo didn't put on like a stripper outfit. He just put on a dress. Then it should be encouraged for children to express themselves how they want to. What's the problem with this segment?
Okay, so there we are. There's the clip. I'm going to take this off because I can't hear myself with them. But yeah, there's the clip. Taylor, right now, I want you to watch for reactions and chime in with any reactions that anyone is leaving. But here's my take. You guys, most of you know I'm a mom of 2 elementary school age kids. Muppet Babies is on Disney Junior. The target age is roughly age 3. I mean, my kids would have watched it when they were like 3 years old, 4 years old, 5, all the way up to 6 years old. This is preschool before kindergarten. Will, I know you don't have children, but let me ask you, do you think that this is age appropriate?
All they said was, hey, look at me. I'm wearing a dress. I was the princess all along. And I thought maybe you guys wouldn't like me because you expect me to look a certain way, but this is how I want to express myself. And you want to know what? Kids aged 1 to 5, many of them wear suspenders, many of them wear dresses, many of them express themselves in ways that is 100% covered by the show. A lot of little girls and boys want to be knights and princesses. So this is 100% age appropriate. How could it not be age appropriate?
No, this is something about sexualizing children is sick and perverted.
Sexualizing children? What about that was sexual? It's sick and perverted? How was that sexual in any manner? Dude, that's a self-report. If you just saw a kid in a dress and you thought about it in a sexual way, that's a self-report, okay? That's 100% on you and whatever perverted thoughts you have in your mind. All I saw was a kid trying to express themselves and they put on a dress with magic powers, right? There was absolutely nothing sexual. Sex was never mentioned. Hell, sexuality was never mentioned. Hell, I didn't even hear gender identity mentioned in that, even though gender identity isn't even sexual. That's gender. That's something different. All that happened was that somebody who was masculine presenting had on a dress, and you want to know what? Looked cute and pretty. That's it. There was nothing sexual about that. Dude, that's a complete self-report.
So no, it's not age appropriate whatsoever.
It's not age appropriate. And I say that as a parent, and I wanted to ask.
Okay, I don't care. I'm sorry, I hear this all the time when people like talk about like what should happen with children, and then they'll say the worst take in the world, and then at the end they'll say it, and I say that as a parent, and so you're supposed to sit back and be like, oh, well, that's fine then. Okay, totally. Yeah, I think you should just take children when they're 3 and throw them in the ocean and see if they can swim or not. And you know, if they just sink to the bottom of the ocean, that's too bad. I guess they were the wrong make and model of child. And I say that as a parent. And then you hear, I say it as a parent at the end. And you're supposed to be like, oh, well, okay. Guess that's totally fine then. Totally fine. Oh, and you know, like all those like manufactured shirts that said like, I'm going to be a lady killer when I grow up. And they put those on babies. That was never called sexualization, even though it 100% was sexualization. And I remember I saw that on like a little relative of mine who was like 2, and I was like, dude, that's really weird. It was like, well, I think it's fine, and I say that as a parent. And then the conversation was like over then. You can't just use the fact that you're a parent to like deflect from criticism of your ideas.
You know, Will, who is much cooler and much more hip than me, and
Don't flatter me. You are just as cool as me, Jill. If not cooler.
We'll see. But yeah, this is not age appropriate, and this is exactly, many of you know who are.
How is that sexualization? Talk about self-reporting now. The difference between someone wearing a dress, which is just a piece of clothing that doesn't signify anything besides maybe beauty or pretty, in comparison to something that says I'm gonna be a lady killer, is talking about, man, I can't wait for this kid to get older so he can start kissing and making out and being with the ladies and all this other stuff. That's creepy. That's always been creepy to me. I think most people see those shirts as creepy. When you put like a little child is I'm gonna get the ladies when I'm older. It's weird because that is signifying that you see this baby. You're excited to see it develop and then start getting sexual and romantic with other people. Like, just let a kid be a kid.
Are living it in all corners of the country. This is what is happening on our television shows, in our movies for our kids, in our schools. Many of us, those of you who are members and even not members of PrEP, you send me messages saying, the librarian read my child a book today about gender nonconformity. I haven't talked to my child about that yet. What do I do? These are things that are happening across the country.
Gender nonconform. It's not that complicated. This segment wasn't that complicated. It didn't get in depth about the ideological foundations of gender nonconformity. They didn't. I mean, I'm looking for, maybe they're going to bring it up, but did they ever mention like, well, everybody, I'm non-binary, and non-binary means I don't associate with the basic gender norms. It doesn't say that. Gonzo just put on a dress. That's all that happened. There was no complicated conversation for it. It was just them putting on a piece of clothing. That's it. It wasn't ideological. There wasn't like some political message on it like smash gender norms. It was just they put on a dress. That's it.
With this gender identity, non-binary ideology.
They didn't bring up non-binary. Do you want to know something? Men identifying as men can also wear dresses. If I put on a dress right now, would that make me a woman? No, it wouldn't. If I put on a dress right now, would that make me non-binary? No, it wouldn't. I don't even see anything in the segment that you provided showing that they even bring up non-binary ideology. They just put on a dress.
Pushed onto kids. It's confusing. It's not age appropriate.
It's not confusing. No child looked at that segment and was like, I cannot comprehend the idea of a male presenting child putting on a dress. It's not that confusing.
And it really strips our rights as parents. It completely strips our rights as parents away, because as parents, we're the ones who are raising our kids.
It didn't strip anybody's rights away. You're the one politicizing this, by the way. You're politicizing this. It was just a puppet put on a dress. That was the segment. A puppet put on a dress. And it was a big shock because it was a person nobody expected. That was the segment. And now you're talking about they're taking your rights away as a parent because they showed this. You know, they didn't take your rights away as a parent. You know what you can do? Not put your kids in front of the TV. Pre-screen anything your child is going to watch. I don't know why you would necessarily need to pre-screen to warn your kids of the dangers of the Muppets, because one of the boy puppets might put on a dress. I don't know why that's so terrifying to you, because I don't want to be the one to shock you, but your child is going to see male presenting people wearing feminine clothing in their lifetime. It's not that dangerous of a thing. It's not going to bring down the foundations of the country. But if you really want to, you can pre-screen all of this content. You can pre-screen all of this. So if anything, if this happens to you as a parent, this is mostly on you. It is your job to pre-screen the content that your children are going to be consuming. Because I know a lot of parents that just put their kids in front of YouTube and let the algorithm do it. And then they'll come and check in, and the algorithm is not showing that kid what they should be seeing at that age. And you want to know whose fault that is? You can maybe say it's partly the fault of YouTube for having a bad algorithm, but it's also your fault for not pre-screening the content. Keep a better eye over your kids. Nobody's taking your rights away. It's your responsibility. I thought conservatives were all about personal responsibility.
We are the ones who decide when we want to open these types of conversations with our kids. And age 4 and 5 is not appropriate. When a kid's in kindergarten, it's black, it's white, it's red, it's green. They want to color, they want to paint, they want to make friends. They don't want to have to think about complicated issues that are medically damaging to kids.
This wasn't medically damaging to anyone. Okay, I'm gonna do something, okay? Hey, cat, bring me a feminine piece of clothing. Literally anything. Anything I can quickly put on. Literally anything. I'm gonna show you guys something. I'm gonna show you guys a wild science experiment, okay? Medically damaging to kids. Now, personally, all I saw that happened was Gonzo put on a dress. I don't know how that's medically damaging. They didn't get into any of they didn't talk about puberty blockers in this segment. They didn't talk about any surgeries being done. But I'm going to show you something amazing right now. A feminine piece of clothing. I expected something I could easily put on. Okay, wow. Okay, you know what? Sure. We'll put this on. Let's see. I'm going to do a science experiment for everybody at home. See. I might be too fat for this.
Did it.
Wow.
This is actually pretty damaging.
Pretty damaging, medically damaging?
Yeah.
Medically damaging either to the eyes or to me. So, I am now wearing a, what is like a short dress over top my shirt. Now, for everybody in chat that has now developed PTSD, maybe cancer, hepatitis, AIDS, a brain tumor, or any other ailments that must have came with you being exposed to me putting on this dress, I apologize. Can I wear this for the rest of the segment? Wonderful. So, I don't know what she thinks happened here medically on how this segment was medically damaging. But to me, all I saw was a kid put on a piece of clothing. It wasn't sexual like the other pervert was trying to suggest. It had nothing to do with medical transitions. It had nothing to do with necessarily being trans. It had nothing to do even with the topic of gender necessarily. All it had to do with somebody putting on a piece of clothing. This seems extremely strange to me for her to like say that this was medically damaging in some way.
on a psychological and physical level.
A psychological and physical. Okay. I know the long-standing nonsensical psychological arguments of how exposing boys to like feminine things is damaging, that or do not stand any criticism whatsoever. But physical? I mean, maybe if the dress doesn't fit them. Physical damage? I mean, I assume she's talking about puberty blockers at this point, but this had nothing to do with puberty blockers.
Like this. So, what do we do? Ban all of these programs?
I would say yes, but I know.
Dude, conservative values just evaporate immediately once anybody else expresses their opinion. All it took was a single Muppet in a dress for this guy to abandon free speech. A single Muppet in a... I remember all these old segments, like these college universities and their opposition to free speech is too much and da-da-da-da-da, and we need to fight for free speech. Free speech is the foundation of modern America. One Muppet in a dress later. Ban them, take it away, scrub it down.
Some people watching would definitely disagree with me. I don't know. I mean, this is horrible. I don't think that kids should be allowed to watch this. If we're not going to...
She shouldn't even be allowed to watch this. No longer the party of personal responsibility. Now the nanny state needs to get involved to stop children from being exposed from me in a dress. By the way, I guess this is now 18 plus content because I put this piece of clothing on. I guess this is now a super sexual stream because I put this piece of clothing on. I ask all the horn dogs in chat to please keep to themselves.
Ban it, which I don't see that happening anytime soon. Then parents need to ban their kids from watching this. You shouldn't. If you're a parent, don't let your kids watch this. That's the first step. Boycott these companies that put out information that is harming children.
How is this harming children? They have not yet provided any information on how this harms children, on how it's physically damaging, how it's psychologically damaging, how any of this even necessarily is inherently trans or non-binary, how it's sexual. They're just saying words. They're just throwing labels at it with no information on how these things are damaging. It was just a simple little fun segment about a Muppet putting on a dress. That's all it is.
They make it so normal. They make it so that something like this is incredibly normal. So the next generation that comes up, all of this is just completely normal.
You know, I know. And that's, I agree, because I've gotten to the point now with my girls, and they are older, and I have had to have certain conversations with them before I really would have, because I know that all of this stuff is out there. And I also know that if I'm not getting...
Think about all the children's television programs that actually has like some weird sexual stuff in it. And definitely on YouTube. YouTube is really bad. Think about all of those that they could be actually talking about. That is about that could actually be discussed about sexualizing children or exploring sexual themes that might not be appropriate for children. All those segments that they could actually be talking about. And instead they're talking about the Muppet that put on a dress.
Ahead of it, and if I'm not on the offense, I'm not doing my due diligence as a parent, and that's our job to do as parents. I also want to alert everyone, if you don't know, I mean, we are based in California, and in California schools right now, in elementary schools,
Gonzo's been in dresses for years. Look it up. Has he really? Is this just the dialogue somehow moving over to the Muppets after the Muppets has been there for years? And now they're just finding out about it, so now they're angry because the political lens has simply changed a little bit?
Administrators...
Can somebody send me an image of Gonzo wearing a dress before this?
And I will say outside programs are coming in and offering workshops to very young children, really propelling these non-binary discussions with children who may or may not have learned about it already. And
Muppet fandom cross-dressing characters. There's an entire page. Wow, that's a little deliberate, isn't it? Yeah, this has been going on for years. This is just... Oh, and there's Gonzo wearing a dress. There's Gonzo again as like a little tooth fairy. So yeah, this has been going on for years. They're just catching up to it now. I had no clue this has been going on for years. So these are just people complaining about it now because it's politically beneficial and they want a virtue signal. And just pretending this is somehow harmful to children.
And they're giving our kids information. They're giving our kids helplines that they can text without a parent's consent about if you question whether you're a male or a female, or if you think you're in between, text this number and one of our helpers will counsel you through it. And they're not telling us parents that they're doing this. Us parents have no...
Okay, now what they're talking about now is not 2-year-olds, okay? What they're talking about now is helplines. Most 2-year-olds don't even have access to a phone, okay? So no, this is not happening to the same age group she is now discussing. Now this has moved on from 1 to 5-year-olds. Now she is talking about middle school and high school. When they talk about helplines, support lines, which I've also fundraised for, like the Trevor Project. Now let me pose a little question to everybody in chat. Let's propose you were in a similar situation as me, a queer youth. Right? In middle school and high school. Now, I can go to my grandparents who I was raised by. Well, that doesn't really make sense. I mean, I do love my grandparents, but they're a little behind the times when it comes to a few of these things. So I don't feel comfortable talking to them about it. And the last time I tried to, it didn't end very well. Well, maybe I could go talk to my father. Oh, wait, my father told me, thank God, my only son ain't gay. I could go to my mother, who was more accepting of LGBTQ plus people, but she had passed. She was dead. So what do? Where do I get help if I can't go to my own family? The same thing exists for suicide hotlines. If somebody is trying to end their own life and it's for a familial issue, which you can't go to your grandparents for or your family for, who should you be able to call? We should have suicides hotlines available to those people. And if queer youth cannot get resources or help from their family because their family's not accepting, making these avenues available to queer youth is a vital lifeline to many parts of the country where these centers do not exist. If you go to a lot of places in the Midwest, there are still locations in the Midwest where half the population does not support queer people. Or even just 40 or 30% can be damaging if your household falls in that 30 or 40%. And having these resources available to young people helps them through extremely turbulent times in their lives. So you want to know what? I'm perfectly fine with it. I'm perfectly fine with having these resources made available to young people. And if you find out that your school has that available to young people, there's always homeschooling. But I would also say that if making these helplines available to young people makes you not want to work at a certain school or bring your kids to that school, that's some self-reflection you need to engage in about how accepting you're being to queer people. That's not a problem of the school system.
No idea this is happening. These counselors will talk to our kids, these strangers who we don't know who they are, without our consent, and they're...
Also, I know there's a few people in chat who disagree with me. I got 1 hour until the Hippy Dippy Roundtable. You are free to go into call-ins and talk to me directly about this. Okay? I'm everything you fear now. I'm the queer man in a dress. I'm everything that conservative America fears.
Pushing this notion to our children that if your parents don't believe in this, then your parents are bad people, and here are the steps that you can take.
No school is doing that. I'm sorry, but now what she's doing has faded into just fantasy land. No schools are telling them if your parents don't believe what we believe, then your parents suck and they're bad and they're evil. No school systems are doing that. Could there be individual teachers who have done that? Maybe. That's because individual teachers don't always follow the rules of the system, and individual teachers have their own opinions. Should they be able to do that? Not really. They shouldn't be able to tell you that your parents are bad people, but the school system is not. If they're saying that bigotry is bad and you just so happen to be a bigot, that's on you. That's not the school system walking up to your kids and saying your parents are bad people. That's totally different from them saying bigotry is bad.
to find your true self and to become your non-binary self. And it's very confusing and it's damaging because it does involve.
The thing is, why did she do the Muppet segment to begin with? If she just wanted to talk about this, she should have just talked about this and bring examples of this. Because now she doesn't need to source the resources she's talking about. She can just live in Fantasyland and just throw out a bunch of claims, no sources, no news stories. Because now she can go into a rant. Just, please. Why talk about the Muppet segment if all you wanted to do was complain about the educational system? Which, let me say again, it has been clearly shown that when you have anti-bullying campaigns that concentrate on the issues of LGBTQ plus folks, and when you have inclusionary campaigns to make them feel more at home, whether that be through representation in media, etc., the mental health outcomes of LGBTQ plus people and of straight cis kids, so literally all children, improve. Why would you be opposed to this? It doesn't make any sense.
When you get to a certain point, hormone therapy that will affect kids for the rest of their life. It is physically damaging. In some areas, kids do not need a parent's consent to undergo medical treatment that.
Okay, now she's just touching every single issue under the sun when it comes to trans issues. This is completely faded. There was no part in this Muppet segment that talked about reassignment surgery or hormones or puberty blockers or children's education when it comes to non-binary. Never even brought up the issue of gender. And let me just say, what she's suggesting is ridiculous. Doctors 100% are going to explain to people the medical risks that go with any procedure. We don't have this same thing when it comes to heart problems. Do you think if we had a time where somebody provided resources about heart issues for kids, like, hey, here's some heart issues, because we're having a month about health, about different medical issues that people face, and then a kid so happens to have a heart issue, do you think they're going to be like, well, we're going to go straight into heart surgery, we're not going to explain the procedure, we're not going to talk about the risks, we're just going to open up your kid? That's not what's going to happen. They're going to explain the medical risks that come with any surgery, because that's what doctors are supposed to do. And that's why we should leave this up to doctors' discretion. We can't just let the government get involved in telling everybody exactly what surgeries they need to have or are banned from having. Seems ridiculous for me. Definitely from the small government people. Leave it up to the doctors to do their job. They're doctors. They're good at what they do. I hear conservatives constantly tell me how great our healthcare system is in comparison to the rest of the world. I disagree with them with how great it is, but if it is so great, why not let the doctors do their work?
Will alter them for the rest of their lives, and they can opt to take it without even having the reasoning ability and the wherewithal to know if what they're doing is to know what they're doing. And
to be fair, though, this woman also doesn't have the reasoning ability, and somehow she can make medical decisions for her kid. So, just something to consider.
It's really sad. Our parents' rights are being stripped away, and we need to take them back immediately. I'm curious if there's any comments about this Muppet Babies.
There's a lot of.
See, now she's back to Muppet Babies. This had nothing to do with Muppet Babies. At what point did Muppet Babies bring up gender reassignment surgery or any of this? This is just complete delusion. Thanks for the subs, Draven. I really appreciate it.
Comments.
Okay.
Patty says it's time for this grandmother to take Disney off and stop buying their products. No more.
Yeah.
Good.
Just buy old VHS of The Lion King.
Yeah.
And you'll be totally fine.
And I want to tell that grandmother, I am with you. No one was a bigger Disney fan than me, but and Muppet Babies is on Disney.
Honestly, can I say I'm a big fan of Disneyland, Disney World. I love those places. I think they're fun. They're aesthetically pleasing. They're great to go to. If I have to see less of these types of people at Disneyland and Disney World, then honestly, I see this as a plus, personally. If I get shorter Disneyland rides, good for me. I'm fine.
Disney Junior, like we said, but it's to the point now where we have to provide alternative shows and entertainment and programming to our kids. And oh my God, Will,
Yes.
What if people started watching PragerU kids shows instead of Disney and Netflix?
See, here it is. Stop with their propaganda. It wasn't even propaganda. It was just a Muppet put on a dress like that Muppet has been doing for the last 20 years. And start watching ours, which will tell you about why the Second Amendment is amazing. We'll tell you why low taxes are good. We'll tell you exactly why the government needs to stay out of our lives. And we'll tell you about how great the war on terror was. And it's escalating. And escalating propaganda. I've looked through it. And it talks about how Margaret Thatcher was a Yas queen for going against the unions. Okay? Their stuff is a lot more propaganda. Is a lot more propagandic. I don't know the word to use. It's a lot more propaganda based than anything the Muppets has put out in the last 20 years. And if also, there's this weird kind of overarching narrative I haven't even challenged yet that children couldn't tackle complicated issues. Let's say the show actually said, Gonzo said, yeah, I'm non-binary. And that was it. And actually said that. Propagandized is the correct word. Children's programming has tackled complicated issues like this before. In fact, the best children's programming tries to tackle complicated issues in a simple manner so young people can understand it. The worst children's programming has always been the ones who just sit on the sidelines, show flashy colors, then ends with a catchy tune. Those have always been the worst children's programming shows. The best example I can give you is Mr. Rogers, and I will always talk about Mr. Rogers in the most favorable light. Mr. Rogers made a custom segment for 9/11. He came out of retirement to make a segment on 9/11 to help explain it to young people. This tragic moment in American history. He made a segment on domestic abuse. He made a segment on things like drugs. And he made a segment on divorce. And I watched that divorce segment on the stream with all of you. And that segment was great. Not because it avoided the complicated issue of divorce, just had it at some weird background filler, but because they tackled it in a way that made the children feel loved and understood so they could see families on their television screen that actually related to them. It wasn't just a magical world of the Brady Bunch where everybody's life was perfect. I want that kind of creative and amazing children's programming. And I would love to one day be able to sit my child that I do want to have one day in front of a television screen and know that we're not just feeding them slop that counts numbers and shows them shapes.
Netflix.
Hey, Haley
lives
Watts
would be
just said
completely
PragerU
changed.
needs TV shows.
We're doing it, Haley.
Come on, Haley.
So we're working. But here's the thing, Haley. I love Haley's comment. I like your style. I like your thinking. Everyone
I like your style, I like your thinking. All they said was, please give us separate propaganda to counter this propaganda.
watching. This is what PragerU Kids is trying to do. We're starting with digital programming. We are starting with videos, with animation, crafts that teach American history. We're starting with digital magazines that teach about the historical heroes that our schools refuse to teach about now. We're starting with all this stuff on a digital level, but I'm going to let you in on.
I'm telling you, the schools still teach about George Washington, okay? I'm not too far removed from school to know they teach about George Washington. They just give a more complete picture. I guess they don't like to say it was wooden teeth, or they're being a little bit more honest now that it was slave teeth, but I would like to be honest with children. You don't need to lie to children. You really don't.
On a secret, my background is in television. So it might not happen this year, but this is a personal goal and a goal that all of us at PragerU Kids are working towards. We want our shows on television. We want every single American family and teacher to watch our shows in the classrooms, at home. We want this PragerU Kids program to grow, but
it's so weird to hear them talk about how propagandized television is, and their solution is, let's do it harder, but in the other direction. That's their solution.
we can't do it without any of you, and that's why it brings me back to the membership. That's why we're doing this membership.
I can't wait for the children's program. It's gonna be like, hey Billy, I heard about this thing called CRT, and now I'm smoking crack. Well, hey, stop that crack smoking and get off that CRT, and instead buy the new Trump card. I can't wait for PragerU Kids. It's gonna be great as it continues to expand.
Membership drive in August. Any other comments? So become a member of PragerU Kids. I'll give you a wink. Yeah.
Yeah, and just to add right now, our shows are available.
Okay, the rest of this is them just plugging their propaganda. Okay, let me be clear. They complained about something that wasn't even propaganda, tried to make it appear like propaganda, then went into a crazy rant about gender reassignment surgery, which the children's segment, the children's show had nothing to do with. And this is just a continuation of what Gonzo has been doing for the last 20 years. Men are allowed to wear feminine clothing. This is the United States of a fucking America. And children are allowed to see men wearing feminine clothing, and it's not going to be harmful to them. It's not going to be harmful to them psychologically, physically, or any other way. All they're going to see is more diversity in this diverse world of ours. But let's say it did actually dip into LGBTQ plus ideology. It has been shown that when you expose children to inclusionary programming, when you expose children to anti-bullying campaigns when it comes to queer people, and increases their mental health outcomes, no matter if they're straight, gay, queer, or anything else. So this just feels like complete hogwash from the right, complaining about something they're admitting openly right here that they want to do personally. Film What Is Rigged. By the way, you've been like talking in chat for like the last hour, man. If you really believe anything you've said, come in here. You can come on. You can come on right now. This is merely about a dude wearing a dress. If it was about what they were talking about, they would have done a story on the issues they were talking about. It'd be like if I tried to say that the Mr. Potato Head conservative thing is just them being angry that people want to identify however they want to identify. And this just connects directly to the conservative hate for Caitlyn Jenner and other people. In fact, let's go see what PragerU is talking about trans people right now. It's like, whoa, dude, this is about a potato head. Like, chill out. I'm busy playing a video game. No, time to call in Lamau. Okay, got it. Well, if you want to stop being a pussy, you can come in later, okay? Wonderful. I'm playing a video game, so that's why I can type constantly in your chat for 1 hour, but then immediately when I'm called out and asked to come in, then I gotta walk away. Then never mind, I'm playing a video game, I can't call in. I can type in your chat. I'm actually typing up my next message right now. But I can't call in, because I'm too busy playing a video game with my other 2 hands that I'm not using to type. Brilliant. See, where it is? There it is! He did keep typing. Right there. I love this. This is great.